Hi everyone, welcome back to B5. Today we're going to be covering Soul Hunter. Before I start, I just want to say that I've been a little bit late in making the videos and writing my essays. It's been really challenging for me. Talking on camera is really hard and writing my essays was really hard, but I think ultimately what was behind all that was not knowing what my voice is actually. So I'm hoping that as I continue to do this, that's going to improve, that I'll get better at it. So if you are, still coming back to watch me, thank you so much, and God bless you. Just to start off, some of the things that I liked about the show. I don't want to admit this, maybe I should admit this. I actually thought that the Shaktot's voice when he was talking was a bit soothing. Is that weird? I don't know, it was really melodic in its own way when he was trying to block out everyone. Maybe that's a good technique to use when I want to block other people out. It was melodic, it was monotone, it was soothing. I don't know, I actually found that soothing. I don't know if I could listen to it for more than the amount of time that he actually recited that, but it was weirdly nice. Guy in the bug suit. He didn't even know. He didn't even know who he was talking to. I really like the bug suit. For all those people who are really insect phobic, that is not the scene to watch. He was very shiny. And all sorts of what do you call that word when they're... Oh, iridescent. Is that the word? The other thing I liked was a response that Ivanova had to... I hope I don't mispronounce his name again. Oh no, this is Dr. Franklin. All right, Dr. Franklin. In that conversation, Dr. Franklin says... Well, in the dialogue between them, Dr. Franklin says, life is all too short, and it ends all too soon, just as we figure things out. Like life is, come to an end. And she says, we'd still make the same mistakes because we're human. And then she says, I know these things. I'm Russian. What does that mean? What do the Russians know that Asians don't know? And one other thing that I really liked in the show was the burial that they had for, the people who have passed. They actually had the burial to the sun. It was really... If I could have a burial like that, that would be so awesome. I always wondered, I don't know if other people think about this, but I always wonder if everyone is being buried because they don't want to be cremated, we're gonna run out of land. How does that work? And then they're gonna dig you up? Excommunicate? What's the word?
You mean excavate?
I don't know. I teach you English now. Excommunicate. I actually thought that was really nice. It was, first of all, it's, I think, earth-friendly. The casket won't even, the spaceship won't even touch the sun. Right? It'd burn and melt before it even got there. Tens and thousands of miles before it even, touched the sun. It's very sun-friendly. I really liked how they had the burial ceremony. Well, it wasn't really quite a ceremony, but I really liked the process of the burial. It was really nice. You're actually going into the light as you're being shot into space. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm weird. I know. I'm really working on that too. Okay, stop. So the most interesting thing about this episode that I really liked was that it was a quiet examination of life and death. Between the humans, the Shaktot, and the Minbari, they all had their own views of death and what death really meant, or what death meant, what having afterlife meant, souls. I'm always kind of thinking about like what my philosophy of afterlife and death is. I mean, it's a work in progress. Every now and then I think about that topic. Because I guess it's still a huge mystery and no one really quite knows. So the Shaktot believe that you can capture souls, and they're captured in these... Was there a word for those balls? They captured souls and they just sort of kept them in these capsules. And that the purpose of that is to learn from these souls and to worship them and give them that kind of honor. The Minbari believe that souls are recycled back into the universe, and those souls are then reincarnated into other lives of the Minbari. Dr. Franklin says, that's nonsense. That really bothers me immensely. His ignorance bothers me, or it's ignorance, disrespect, and his extremely closed-mindedness bothers me tremendously. And quite honestly, that is not too far from the experiences I've had from other medical doctors. So I do have a projected connection to that. I mean, I've been to medical doctors, and I tell them some of the findings that my naturopath had in regards to my health, and I share these with my medical doctors, and they've told me that has nothing to do with anything, and that it's nonsense. They've actually used similar words to describe it, and I never went back to that medical doctor. I'm not into that. I'm not into that. I'm into really looking at everyone's perspectives and respecting it before I could actually make my own determination. But I won't necessarily shoot anyone else's beliefs down. I don't think that's productive. The Shaktot capture souls. They think that they have to worship them and encapsulate them so they can go on, and that's their way of acknowledging the existence of this soul. The Minbari stopped him from actually getting Dukat, was his name, was it? That he felt that it was extremely selfish of the Minbari to not allow him to capture this soul. That to me was extremely hypocritical. He thinks that was selfish. But then he doesn't realize that he's really crossing lines and boundaries into someone else's culture and their beliefs. And that was something that I definitely reacted to. The other thing that I found was hypocritical was that, on the other hand, he captures souls and then he enshrines them and he keeps them for himself. He collects it as his own collection. And he says he learns from them, he talks from them. I wonder what he's actually learning. I wonder what he's actually learning in this process. If he actually captured all these souls and he was learning from these souls, and wouldn't he then be more ascended and less limited in his worldview? For my personal examination of death, the more I think about how I understand death and afterlife, I lean more towards what the Minbari believe. I really do believe that there is an afterlife. Well, not an afterlife per se, but that our energies are recycled back into the world. I believe that everyone has energy, and that energy is part of our soul. And our soul, when we do pass, it then goes back to the world. It then goes back into the universe. And depending on the kind of energy that the person housed, that would be the energy that goes back into the universe. So my sort of theory on this is that if I were to live a positive life and then I were to die, that my energy would be positive, and that positive energy would be recycled back into the world for someone else to be reincarnated from that energy. Probably not necessarily me. So, because this is what I think, I wonder if, I think about the world we live in now, and I feel like there's much more anger and hate, violence, and negativity, especially including all the natural disasters that have been happening, that the people who do pass, I wonder what state they're in. Because if they're more angry and they pass, and that energy goes back into the universe, then the next generation of people would be born with negative energy. They would be more angry, more violent, more hateful. So looking at our present world now, and including some of the kids that are growing up in our generation now, I wonder if that's, that adds to a little bit of the explanation to why things are the way they are. Those are some of my theories, and I'm still in the process of continuing to decide what exactly, or in its entirety, what I really believe. It may be a little mystical for a shrink, but doesn't mean that I'm not human and that I'm not spiritual. I actually am very spiritual, but I always go where my clients want to go. If they're more focused in the present and on the things that are concrete, I'm there with them. But then if they're more spiritual, then I also go there too. I wonder where some of my clients who are actually extremely spiritual, what their therapy process would have been like. Actually, I do know. A couple of them decided that they had to leave the other therapists because therapists actually thought that they were kind of nuts for being spiritual. So, but it's all about the person's understanding and their own beliefs and philosophies of the world, and that's not my place to judge, but to respect, learn, honor, and help them understand a little bit more about themselves, while I also learn who they are. Time. I do have to agree. I agree with both Dr. Franklin and Ivanova when they were having that conversation about time. That, time is all too brief, and by the time we kind of just get it right, we're pretty much on our deathbed, or things are a little too late. But time is very funny because many people regret time, and I went through a period of really regretting the time that I've wasted. The time that I've wasted because I couldn't figure out who I was, or I didn't know what I wanted to do. Or I didn't know who I was and what direction I wanted to go in. And I wasted a good few years where I could have been productive during that time, and I wasn't. And here I am now. I'm in my 30s, and it's just now that I feel like I'm more sure of who I am, and I have more confidence. But I wish that I had these things when I was in my 20s, and then it wouldn't have been so hard to be, for instance, right here, sitting in front of the camera, and not having such a hard time with this process. But it's a very touchy subject for many people. It's a very hard topic for many people. That by the time we do kind of get it right, we are in our 30s, we are in our 40s, we are in our 50s, we are in our 80s. Some people think that life begins at 60 now, and that's really sad, because then that means that you couldn't live the life that you really have wanted until you were 60 years old. And that's tragic. On one hand, we don't have enough time. So we have to make the most out of it, and we're always constantly busy, and we're doing the best we can. In some ways it makes us more productive, more creative, and more motivated and determined to live the life that we're given. On the other hand, because we're limited on our time, we're forced into figuring out or accomplishing our milestones, getting a college degree, getting married, having kids. And then people decide that that's not really what they wanted all along, but that they had to because, let's say, their biological clocks were ticking and that was something that they had to accomplish. So then it also limits us on the other hand, and we're stressed out about it too. If we had more time, we certainly would have more time to figure ourselves out and decide what kind of life we want to have. We are, as she says, we're human. And what I think she means by we're human is that we have emotions that are probably unlike any of the other species. So these emotions half the time, or maybe sometimes for many people, majority of the time, guide our decisions. And that gets us into a lot of trouble. But then we're very emotional. Humans are very emotional. We make our decisions based off emotions. So would we perpetually continue to make the same mistakes? And if we look at people now, many people do. They say, I made the same mistake over again. I just made another mistake and it's the same mistake over again. And how many times do we make the mistake until we actually get it right? For some people, it takes years. For others, it takes decades. And not to say that, having emotions and feelings feelings are wrong, but it definitely affects our decision making and whether or not we make best decisions for ourselves. I think emotions like guilt and shame drive people to be a certain way for a huge number of their years of their life. A huge number of years in their life, okay, there. Or anger. Some people are angry for their whole lifetime and they never make the most out of it. And they perpetually make decisions based off their anger, let's say. So, she makes a really good point. So there are definitely pros and cons to maybe having an extended time frame for us, but at the same time, would we even make the most out of it? There was a couple of things some characters said that my interest piqued. The soul hunter looks into Delaine's soul and he says, you would do such a thing? And what did he say? Incredible, right? Was it incredible? Yeah, and Delaine is still a huge mystery. She sits on the Grey Council, but and her name is Satai, and that name seems to ring a huge bell. I wonder who she is. Obviously, she's extremely important, but who is she and why is she there acting as ambassador? And the other thing that she says then while she's recovering, she says it in reference to Commander Sinclair. She says, we were right about you. We were right about you. He's obviously extremely important too. So I'm looking forward to, learning about these two characters especially. My favorite scene in the episode was the very last scene. Delaine was sitting Indian style on the floor and she's holding on to each soul and she's giving it so much love and compassion. And then she frees it and lets them back into the universe. There was something about that scene that was really humbling and warm. I think I'm sensitive to scenes like that, where people are showing more compassion and all this positivity to things, to each other. So that was my favorite scene. And it told me a little bit more about her as well and how sensitive she is. So there you have it, you guys. Just a few thoughts on Babylon 5. Thanks for joining me. See you later. What?